Hello everybody, and welcome to Ancient Architects. Please subscribe now to get the latest ancient history news and independent research from around the world. In my last video I showed you a number of lost relics from the Great Sphinx, artefacts discovered between the paws in the 19th century excavations by Giovanni Caviglia, which were taken from Egypt and now sit in museum storerooms around the world. Yes, the area between the paws of the Sphinx looks very different today to how it looked not just at the end of dynastic history, but also as recent as 200 years ago. All we can see today is this granite plinth and the famous 18th dynasty granite dream stele of Thutmose IV. But what many people don't know, and what I presented in my last video, is that the dream stele was actually one of three. It was flanked by two stelae, and these come from the reign of the 19th dynasty king Ramesses II. There were also two low walls, likely topped with lion or sphinx statues, fragments of which were found on the ground nearby. Between the two walls was an opening, and in the middle of this opening was a lion statue, placed on the ground and facing the dream stele. By all accounts, this lion was found in situ, meaning this was its original position. Moving further out, and there was also another wall, and it looks to have a kind of half window in its centre. This lion statue was found close by, and it is believed to have sat on top, with another lion on the other side of the window. This lion statue is almost identical to one that was made during the reign of King Nectanebo I, who reigned between 380 and 343 BC. Moving further out still, and in front of the window is the granite plinth, and, as stated, this still remains today. But this plinth is in fact the bottom section of a horned altar, possibly dating to the 3rd to 4th centuries BC. Being a similar age to the lion statue we've just seen. So, as we've seen, work on this inner sanctuary of the Great Sphinx began during the reign of Thutmose IV, because he erected the dream stele. It was added to by Ramesses the Great, and then it looks like further work was done in the late period. From the discovery of various inscribed platforms, masonry fragments and stone tablets, we know that this inner sanctuary, shrine or temple, located between the paws of the Great Sphinx, was used all the way up to and into Roman times. A grand staircase was also constructed. From the 18th dynasty onwards, the Sphinx was known as Horumaket, and then it was known as Harmachis, a representation of a solar deity, a god that was also known as the overseer and saviour. So that was a very convoluted overview of my last video, and if you want to learn more, please do take a look. I've left a link in the description below. This video is an addendum, and it's thanks to a viewer of the channel, an incredible 3D artist called Kevin Eslinger, who has reconstructed how the Sphinx would have looked if the sanctuary between the paws would have been preserved. After seeing my video last week, Kevin emailed me this past weekend, and I have to say that his 3D modelling work has really brought the lost history of the Great Sphinx back to life, and we now have a much better idea of what it looked like. Of course, Kevin didn't have detailed measurements to work with, because the measurements don't exist. All we have are a few old sketches and diagrams that were made by Henry Salt, and even these are not accurate in places. We also have the brief description by Salt, but again it lacks details like measurements. What Kevin's achieved really is the best possible outcome, especially with what we had to work with, and I think it's come out truly fantastic. Before I show you the 3D computer model, please do follow him on Instagram, YouTube and TikTok. His handle is shown on screen, and so please do visit and give him your appreciation. Scrolling through his YouTube channel, and he also has another Sphinx video where he imagines how it would have looked if it once was a recumbent lion, with a lion head, and he's used an Old Kingdom lion statue as his guide. He's also modelled the incredible Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe. His YouTube shorts include metahuman reconstructions of historical figures, including Julius Caesar, Nefertiti and George Washington, and they really are fantastic. But this new project on the Great Sphinx has really blown me away, because not only does it help us to see what the Sphinx enclosure once looked like, the video he's put together also helps us to view it from different angles, and we can experience what it looked like if we were stood inside. And so, here we go. A famous view of the Great Sphinx as we know it. And now from the front. The horned altar is in position, and Kevin's added the missing top piece. Moving in, and we can see the first wall with a half window in the middle, flanked by two lion statues. And now moving towards the inner sanctum. The Dream Stele is central. The small lion is on the floor and looking towards it. Kevin has also angled the lion slightly north of due west, as per the sketches by Henry Salt. There we can see one of the stelae of Ramesses the Great. I like the fact he's kept it true to Salt's sketch and he's not added any colour, because this way we can see the detail. Wouldn't it have been so much better if Caviglia and Salt had left it like this, preserving it and not just ripping it up? It really is a shame. And no, none of these features date to the time of the Sphinx's creation, of course, but every piece of stonework from the stele, the altar, the walls and the lions are all part of the monument's ancient history. Just a few weeks ago when I walked in between the paws of the Great Sphinx, as I said in my last video, it did have a unique atmosphere. It felt like a corridor or room, and unless you looked up, you wouldn't know you were stood there between the paws of the great monument. So imagine what it would have felt like if it still looked like this. Were people even allowed in? Was it only a place for a priest, or maybe just the king? Was there a public or private ceremony inside? This is a unique piece of work, the first 3D visualization of the Sphinx inner sanctuary. Of course, Kevin has this as a 3D computer model, but I'm so happy he supplied me with this video, because he shows off all the different angles. Looking from the top, and I think yes, the area behind the Dream Stele could well have been some kind of burial site, maybe for reinterring the remains of Thutmose I, the first king of the 18th dynasty, or maybe it was used in this manner in the late period. We'll sadly never know. I'll just cut away from that video, because today, in the area behind the Dream Stele, there is a metal door that goes down into a pit. The floor Mark Lehner is stood on in this picture is made from cement, added in the reconstruction work in the 1920s and 30s. So, there was either a floor here originally, and it was covering a chamber below, which I guess would make this a roof. Or maybe this acted like a sarcophagus, and there was no roof per se, but the roof was actually a sarcophagus lid. Or maybe the area behind the Dream Stele was just much deeper, we simply don't know. I do imagine that treasure hunters would have smashed through this area in antiquity, because it is the perfect place to look for treasure, because it's also the perfect place for a burial, central in the structure and directly behind the Dream Stele. Because the more I look at it, the more I think it was a site of a burial, of someone important who lived during or after the 18th dynasty. Now back to the reconstruction, and the detail is just superb. You get a real sense for how this area would have looked. Of course there would have been even more stonework, blocks of limestone that were removed by Giovanni Caviglia in the 19th century, and maybe long before. The beard area would have also been built up as well, but without having any specific references to work from, it made sense for Kevin not to include it, because it would just be guesswork. We are told that the lions, the walls and the stele were found with remnants of red paint, and red paint was also found on the Sphinx monument itself. But I like the fact that Kevin has left everything more natural, because we don't know how this area was painted specifically. We don't know the shade of red, and we don't know what pigmentation was used. So instead of guessing, keeping it a natural limestone colour is the best option in my opinion. What's amazing and somewhat baffling is that for people to see this reconstruction, it takes an artist using his own time and resources to create it, and it takes someone with a YouTube channel to present it to the masses. And I like what Kevin has done here, removing the new detail, and so we can see a before and after comparison. Again, it helps us to visualise what's missing. And now he's overlain the plan diagram by Henry Salt. By doing this, you can see just how inaccurate Salt's Sphinx measurements actually are. So Kevin has really done the best job possible with the limited details we have. And I do think this reconstruction is a fair representation and without any unnecessary embellishments. I think this work could be taken even further. And yes, it would be guesswork. We could build up the beard area and place the known beard fragments into position. We could add a large statue behind the Dream Stealer, as some believe a statue did once stand here. We could add a shade of red to the entire monument, we could colour the Sphinx headdress, reattach the broken nose, and then apply the royal makeup, but that will all have to be for another day. At the very least, this is how the Sphinx looked in the early 19th century, and I would love to see all of the lost Sphinx artefacts come back together again. Wouldn't it make a fantastic display in the new Grand Egyptian Museum? Maybe with Kevin's reconstruction work displayed alongside the artefacts. I would like to thank Kevin for this work, and again please follow him on TikTok, Instagram and YouTube, and please leave comments on his social media channels, because this 3D reconstruction is not a gift for ancient architects. I think that what he's accomplished really is a fantastic gift for the world. Thank you very much for watching this episode of Ancient Architects. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel, please like the video, and please leave a comment below. Thank you very much.